Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. Really great to be with you. I guess a little earlier than we usually do this. So it's afternoon for me. Maybe it's morning for you or evening for you. And for our guest today, which is Maya, it's very early on the west coast of the US. So thanks for joining us so early. And you can see there we have some awesome people coming up in the next couple of weeks. And after those next 5 people, we will be doing a summer break. Winter break for me here, but a summer break for a short while. But then we will be in for season 5. And in fact, today is episode number 100. And so we have been doing this. You can see all the amazing people that have been interviewed over the last, I guess, 2 years or 1.5 years, which is really awesome, and so great to have communicated about all these amazing people within our community. And before we get Maya up on screen, I do want to just share a few words that come from our community members about Maya. And the first one comes from Fabian, and he just says, Maya, aka Bright Light, is a brilliant consultant, writer, and a thought leader on sustainability and regen economies. I met Maya during the coach certification, and she has become a great friend. It's difficult to be near her and not learn something new. Keep rocking, Maya. And then from Magdalena, optimistic, scientific, and creative, a team player and a leader, fun and diligent, Maya is able to invent, implement, and bring us along on the most hopeful and future-looking projects. It was a pleasure and a distinct experience to be part of her EXO coaching cohort. And then lastly, from Curtis, from the first moment I saw Maya on my EXO coaching certification, I nervously thought, oh shit, she is brilliant. She also turned out to be kind, funny, quirky, and a creative, generous collaborator. An OpenExO treasure she is. And so with that, I want to welcome up Maya to the screen. Maya, welcome. And thank you for joining us so early in the morning.
Thank you so much. And now you can see my complexion is red from that was just wonderful. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure. I love to share, from our community, about our community, because those peer-to-peer interactions are really what make a community, right?
Completely.
And so important for us to do and share. And so I always ask, the first question is to tell us a little bit about yourself. Mm-hmm. And how you came to actually join the OpenExO community.
Yeah, so I'll start from the end. I've known people in the community for years, and it really intrigued me because I'm really interested in new models, financial models, business models, ways of doing. And I've been a startup person for most of my career. So for me, it felt like this is the startup process, but in a consulting way. And it was really interesting. So I took the certification, and you just showed the two people from my team, and Fabian was our coach. And we stayed friends and collaborators since then. It's been just such an amazing journey. And these are very dear and close people to in my life. So so that's a part of the EXO community is not only just a business and ideation and philosophy and all of that, is actually a true community where you actually make friends, which is really special. What I do in my day job, currently I'm the head of ops for a startup called Holo. It is developing a framework called Holochain. This is a different DLT, distributed ledger. It is not blockchain, but it is interoperable with blockchain in an agent-centric manner. We're in alpha stage. We're almost in beta. And really, we're looking at how do we build a fully distributed web cloud solution. So it's been really interesting to see. We're really progressing right now. It's very layered. There's a lot of different products we're going to be bringing to the market. It's not just like the one product, but it's a slew of products. And one of the places that I'm really excited of where the solution can actually land is in applications like a distributed grid. So how do we do a distributed renewable energy grid, to actually create more resilience in our local and global communities? So that's one place that I'm working hard at. And the other place is I'm finalizing my MBA project in circular economies, and I'm actually focusing on what does it take to collaborate between multi-stakeholders to implement circular and regenerative cities. Because I'm really interested in collaboration, because that is it. If we don't figure out how we work better together, all the beautiful technologies and solutions are not going to work if we don't have politicians that are okay to create the policies, if we don't have investors that are willing to invest in companies that are not just about the ROI, but actually about well-being for people and planet. So it really is that part that is the hardest one for us as humans. We know how to collaborate. That's how we build this amazing civilization, but it's also where the breakdowns happen. So, and it was actually very fitting that the OpenExO coaching certificate is all about collaboration. And how do you do better collaboration? There was a lot of focus on that. So for me, that is actually the most important thing. And technology and ideas are second, because if we don't get that right, we're not going to create any change. That's a little bit about me.
No, awesome. And so, you mentioned, circular economy, regenerative, the planet. I mean, and your background, it's obvious that this is really important to you. I always, ask people also, about their MTP. Of course, when it comes to the EXO model, having an MTP is sort of non-negotiable, right? Like you can, and we've spoken about this recently. You can leverage some of the attributes, but you can't really call yourself an EXO if you're not, leveraging. If you don't have an MTP, if you're not really starting with purpose. So what is that MTP for Maya?
For me, it's not a small one. It's a shortened version of the Buckminster Fuller design challenge, but it's make the world work for 100% of all beings or all life in the shortest amount of time. And we can dig deeper into it, but it really is, what does that mean that the world works for everybody? And everybody is not only us humans, because we cannot survive without our living systems. And right now, sending ourselves to space actually starts showing that we start breaking down. So this is right now this planet. So how do we make it work for everybody? And how do we not leave all the other peoples? And Native American people have given me this amazing framework of people that are not only two-legged people, but all the people, the winged people and the swimming people and the tree people and the rock people, the four-legged people, six-legged and eight-legged. Really that inclusive view, because we are in a relationship to them. So that's where my MTP comes from. And how do I support that and know that it's not my job to finish it, but it's my job to work on it.
No, absolutely. And so, I mean, so important, that, and we've been speaking about this before, about the fact that, that's actually a really high level, MTP at the end of the day, that without it, we can have a really great purpose that's for people, but if we don't have a sort of planet left, does it really make meaning? And so, obviously, going through your MBA, which is in circular economy, I wanted to just touch on that, because I mean, that seems quite, new or radical, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, when I did mine, it was pretty old school, right? It was like, and Salim often says that no MBA is going to teach you how to build, a 21st century business. That's how I felt when I did mine. But are things changing? And so, what really, I mean, obviously your MTP sparked that topic, but is the entire course actually around circular economy, or is it just your actual, sort of thesis topic?
No, this is a circular economy MBA from the University of Bradford in the UK. It's been around for about 6 years. It's a distance learning MBA. I started
Yeah.
it because of COVID, because we were in front of screens way too many hours, and it's like, well, good time to learn something. It's still university, so they have to work within like the speed of universities, but they're actually very open for us to experiment. For example, my last elective, which was about innovation and enterprise, we were invited to look at a startup that either is circular or a system innovation as well, which is actually looking at systemic innovations. Is a new thing. Yes, it's for people being practicing it forever. It's old, but for it being in the academic level is actually new. And I actually
Yes.
used an EXO framework, because that is an innovation framework. And when you look at a startup that is innovative in circularity and in system innovation, you can actually look at a lot of these platforms are using EXO. So
Mm.
yeah, it is a circular economy MBA, and I've now I think had out of like 2 core modules and about 4 elective models, all about circular economy. So definitely very groundbreaking.
That's really awesome. And so, speaking about that, and you're saying, hey, I actually looked at the EXO model. Some people might think, hey, EXO and circular economy, like, do they fit? Are they mutually exclusive? Are they? So what is your thinking on that, around the two sort of frameworks?
Well, first, EXO is an innovative tool that it can be used in service for good. So as long as we come from that framing, and that's where the MTP starts from, is like, is what we're trying to do in the world good, or betterment? Maybe the word good is problematic, but are actually trying to better our environment, the people, work, and how we use each attribute in a way that doesn't create more externalities for people. That it's not just, I know we talked about it yesterday, but Uber in America is creating issues with employment and lack of healthcare benefits, etc. And in other countries, it's very beneficial. It's people getting out of poverty. So that is like, is this a good or a bad? But where are we starting? We're actually creating change. So, for instance, the company that I looked at is really a circular company, and it's definitely what they're dealing is creating a interoperable layer for waste and supporting the whole ecosystem to lift from the old archaic ways of using spreadsheets and phone calls to actually create logistic for waste management, to creating a one space where they use algorithms and interfaces and dashboard and all the things that we talk about. And they use community and crowd, and they use all of it to actually help cities reduce costs. That's the number one thing. So they can have budget for other things, have better communication and speed, and also efficiency. Because one of the things that circular economy looks at, circular economy really looks at waste as food, because that's how nature does it. We're very wasteful, and actually is not very intelligent. We have a intelligence on this planet that's 4.4 billion years. It doesn't waste anything. We waste, and we also waste money, because when we actually create something and then we throw it away, that's a waste of money and resources. And what the circular economy looks at is, where do we intervene in the system to actually keep materials in the loop as long as possible? And it can be from the get-go, how do we design more regenerative products that last longer and actually don't create extraction, and actually creates a positive net return on all levels, like ecosystem and monetary. And that actually helps when we keep a material in the loop, or we keep a product in the loop longer, we can actually use it again, and we can actually get paid for it again. It's not the best example, but the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is one of the proponents of bringing the circular economy to the world. Actually brings it as a very easy way to look at it, which is the t-shirt idea, where you make one t-shirt and then you can actually upsell that t-shirt again and again. So you made it once, but you can actually get some margin of profit on it if you resell it. So there are, companies who are looking at it. Of course, Patagonia is the easiest one to talk about, but there's so many other systems that are looking at like, well, how do we do this more efficiently, which is, is capitalist, or is very much about what EXO is about. But it really is beneficial because efficiency in a framing that comes from a circular, more sustainable framework is about reduction. And the number one thing we can do is reduce. That's kind of the number one. When you reduce, reuse, remanufacture, and then recycle. So recycling, a lot of people think, oh, circular economy is about recycling. No, that's the last thing you do. And we even added another R, regenerate, because regenerative is really designing the system and the conditions to be conducive of life. Right now, when we extract, we're creating the conditions for death. I mean, we've seen, let's start with from the worst. Tar sands are one of the worst extractive ways of getting our oil, because we literally take boreal, and we, because we're all in it, we take boreal forests that are here to actually regulate our heat in our systems. And by the way, Canada is warming 7 times faster than anywhere in the world because it's closer to the North Pole. So you're taking these boreal forests and you're just demolishing them, and then you leach the tar sands from the top of the soil. So you're destroying the soil and you basically leave dead land. So that is not conducive for life. That is conducive to death. So what is in our practices that we can actually keep the oil in the system, move to renewable energy, even using biofuels? You still have to grow that. It's still like think about the chain, think about the system. So I think the circular economy, donut economics, and I can talk to each one, and regenerative economics, all kind of are progressions of really looking at the whole. They really look at holism. They look at the full system, because when we start mapping it out, then we see where we're losing things, or we're gaining more issues, and where we're creating negative cascading effects on the planet and ourselves. Like the interconnectedness of this is really, really important for people to grasp.
No, absolutely. Now, the really difficult question, though, is there's a growing number of people who, myself included, who would really agree with you and say, how do we make this more mainstream? But unfortunately, the status quo is circular economy is expensive. Sustainable, sustainability is expensive. Climate change costs too much, so we will wait. What do you think is sort of the answer to that, right? That gets people realizing, wait a minute, there's actually a lot of economic benefit to this, and so it's not that big bear that everyone's thinking it is.
The reality that if you look at projects like Project Drawdown, when you crunch the number, it's not expensive, and then when you compare it to the expense of dealing with the fallout, we're talking about 200 million refugees. We're talking about like systems collapsing. We're talking about not having resources anymore, and everything costs so much more. We're talking about all these issues of like what happens when there is like more and more and more catastrophic natural events, and the money that you have to pay to restore and rejuvenate from there. And the cost of actually mitigating climate change is something like, it's 2% of the global GDP a year. So it's $2 trillion a year or something like that, give or take, right? That's not expensive. And there is a lot of benefits. There's a meme that, what if this was a mistake and we got a great world, world that looks like that. So the meme is like, what if this is a hoax and we got a great world that works for everybody? It's a very environmental insider joke. But absolutely not a hoax. Look at the numbers. Look at how much we're heating so fast. And do we want to live in a world like this? Do we want to have our descendants living in a world like this? If the conversation is only money, then we're not paving a path for ourselves, and that's a shame. If you think about it in a much more global civilization way. And again, it actually makes economic sense to invest in all of these solutions. Yes, it's going to be a bumpy ride to transition, and it already is. And only about 8.6 to 9% of the world has moved circular. And again, circular economy is not the be all end all. It's a system, and it keeps evolving. Like what a circular economy is. There's about 146 different models of circular economy out there. So people are not completely aligned on it, but the idea of how do we transition to a more like nature system. I think biomimicry is another really great framing of really looking at nature for answers, because again, there's a hubris of we think we can solve everything, and we have a living system that has been doing this for 4.4 billion years and has figured it out. It worked. We came in the Holocene where everything was balanced, and now we're in the Anthropocene, which is the epoch where humanity started changing the planet. And the question is, can we get to the Ecocene where we actually live with the planet and not destroy it? And there's kind of let's go even one more level out there to the cosmic perspective. The Fermi paradox of where's everybody? Where are all the other big civilizations beyond us? And the scientists are starting to say, well, maybe they all got to a place like us, and then they destroy themselves, and that's why we're not finding others. That's really sad. So for me, it's like philosophically, how do we not do that?
Absolutely. And the question is, have we actually done this in the past before? There's many things that there's we still have open questions about, whether it's the big things like how did we build the pyramids or Stonehenge, through to what are these weird sort of fossils we're finding that look like computers or whatever the case may be. And so can we as a society, as you say, actually come together and say, wait a minute, like we actually can do this better. And one of the things that really concerns me though is the fact that we've already potentially from a amount of carbon in the atmosphere gone quite far, right? And so the whole idea of now sort of doing making massive changes to the world by either how do we suck that carbon out? What do we do? Can we change our oceans? And actually some people see this as us as humans perhaps sort of like playing God. I don't know, what are your thoughts there? I mean, it's a really difficult conversation to have, and there's so many opinions, and science doesn't necessarily completely agree either on all aspects.
Yeah, and it's complex. I mean, this is the realm of hyperobjects where they're so complex and you can't see the beginning and the end of it. But I think it's also a huge opportunity for science, for technology, for startups, and I think to work together, not to try and be, I'm just going to go and do this one product, but how does it actually work with other systems? Does it actually create impact at the end of the day? And there's a lot of work to do. So, you've got natural-based solution. I would say we start there because nature's smarter than us, but it also takes time. Like we want to, plant a trillion trees. That's great. Who's going to care for them? Are they native? Is there going to be enough water? Do they grow fast enough? There's all these questions. But to that answer, yes, there's this urban forest project from the Japanese method of growing forests really fast, and it's really effective, and it's all native, and we can do it, and that helps with cities start cooling down because plants and trees cool down the atmosphere, right? So we have nature-based solutions, and that could also be algae forests that are permaculture, regenerative forests. That is also regenerative agriculture that basically looks at a very different way and very easy way to change the way we do agriculture with cover crops, no-till soil, not using chemicals in our agriculture, and there's a bunch of other things. Putting solar on top of fields to actually reduce the heat. Like there's all of these things, and then on the other side there is the actual technology, the air mining technology, which is still very early. There's things like there's a whole idea on how to like recool the North Pole. And there is also things that we need to deal with, like geoengineering. Yeah, we didn't want to get to this point, but here we are. And that could be a solution, not the best solution, but the amount of stuff we're pumping into the air at this point, like if we actually want to reduce the heat, and that is something we can study. Yeah, this is the point where we're like, no bad ideas, but all these ideas need to actually look at full consequence, full like modeling, really taking it heady and not just like blazing out and just testing it because we don't know what the consequences are, like what's happening with a lot of AI issues right now. Because hey, somebody just said let's do it, and then all of a sudden people start believing that the AI is sentient, whether or not they are, and all the untold and unknown consequences that this might lead. So I think there needs to be a reframing and looking at the perspective of like, we cannot just look linearly at solutions anymore. They're systemic. They have people, planet, environment, economics, like the full macro view. And if we don't bring that into our business plans, we're again shooting ourselves in the leg, and we're also not preparing our new startups and our new businesses to face the issues of the 21st century. So it's business savvy to think this way. I completely believe, because it actually gives you a chance of being regenerative, being sustainable over time, and actually staying in business when you think like that.
No, absolutely. And Maya, as I said to you when we were pre-show, we're going to get just into the conversation, just feeling like we're flowing, and I'm going to have to cut it short.
Yeah.
And that is the case today, because we try and keep these under 30 minutes. That's what the algorithms seem to like. So it has been awesome chatting to you. I know I'm going to be chatting to you more, hopefully, as you can also, complete the studies and, with work and studies, so much going on. But it's always a pleasure chatting to you. Mm-hmm. As the three folks said beforehand, really great. What is that one thing that you want to sort of, leave with the audience as putting a pin in it as we end off the conversation today?
Well, putting the pin in it is, whenever I get down and depressed and look too much at the IPCC reports, I remember that there are amazing people out there, in droves of them, actually doing amazing work. So find the other people like you and do the collaborative work, because you're not alone. We're all working on this. So that's what I want to leave people with.
Awesome. Well, Maya, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you. Really enjoy it. My video seems to have stopped. There we go. Yeah. Really great chatting to you. And we'll see you around in the community for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
So great chatting to Maya, really focusing on that, circular regenerative side of the world. I mean, we know that our planet's important to us, right? And the fact that, the EXO model can really be used to drive a positive change in the world, so important. And so thanks for everyone for being here, for watching. We'll see you all again next week.